Hi, this is Michael Becker, and welcome to the Identity Nexus. The Identity Nexus is a program that brings industry thought leaders that are having to achieve a personal data and identity exchange equilibrium within our society. What we've been doing over the years is we've been looking at the intersection of all of these market forces that are driving and influencing change in society. Specifically, we've been taking a look at emerging cultural and consumer opinion changes, new technologies, laws and regulations, commerce and economic models, and obviously the intersection of all of those, politics. And with me today is Valto Loikkanen. He is the co-founder and chief experience officer of Prifina. So Valto, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me. So it's great to be here.
Like you, I've been personally on this journey to figure out how do we actually enable a exchange of people to being able to have control over their personal data and identity, and what that really means in the market. So that's what we're going to be talking about today in this conversation. We're going to be talking about this new and emerging idea that people can actually have. What industry often will talk about is self-sovereignty or agency or control or ownership of their personal data and identity. So with that in mind, let's kick things off. So first and foremost, can you let us know who are you, and what's your mission? Like, what brought us to this moment today?
So first, just a little bit of myself. So I'm a serial entrepreneur who's been building innovations and ventures for 25 years. So I've been, in the innovation space for quite some time, and we worked earlier in other innovative platform models like equity crowdfunding and fintech areas most recently, before basically committing to the personal data problem, if you will. As Prifina, we've been in this space now for about 3-4 years as a Silicon Valley-based company. We have also a development unit here in Finland, where I'm physically based at the moment. And basically, our mission is to really help empower individuals with their personal data. And so we're laser focused on the individuals first. And then, how does that change the game in the markets?
Yep. And again, Prifina was founded in 2019, but you and your co-founders have been envisioning this world now for well over a decade. And we'll talk about it in a bit, but kind of like, why now is just, you were in our preamble conversation, you were talking about this opportunity of market fit. Can you explain that to us a little bit, Rick?
Yeah, so as someone who's been working with innovation for a long time, and as a serial entrepreneur, you have to, you're looking at so many things all the time. So one of the things is that you get pretty good in predicting the future, and many serial entrepreneurs and investors would say this, but they all would also agree that it's extremely difficult to figure out the timing. So the timing can be off by a decade. So it doesn't help if you know what's kind of future's going to hold or what's going to emerge with the logical path of some things, but it's extremely hard to know when the market's going to move and when the technologies are going to be ready. So with that in mind, when we set up, we basically went into this strategy that also some research have been done about active waiting. So active waiting is that you go into that space with the vision, kind of what market is close enough, but you don't spend time just waiting. You build stuff that is hard to build and takes time to be ready when the market is ready. So that's kind of been our approach for the market. So we started to see that this may really become a reality now when the GDPR regulation started to materialize in Europe. So we started to look more seriously in 2018, a little bit further, and then made that final commitment around 2019 with the co-founding team.
And you've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but let's just crystallize it. So, for example, what is your mission specifically as Prifina, and your kind of your views and vision for a future of people being in control with their data?
So it's definitely, like many say, they put the customer in the center, or they put but that hasn't been true in digital world for a long time. So what we do is we take that position, and we really want to empower individuals with their personal data, as making it individual side first and not the service side first. So it's really flipping the whole setup, the upside down, and putting the individuals into center and making them the first and primary beneficiaries of their personal data. And then, of course, like people have always needed, they need services of all kinds, but it starts from that default position instead of the current status quo that in the digital world has been, offset. It used to be the different way also before this kind of how the digital services, specifically online, have evolved.
Yeah, and while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So we've got we can kind of help people set the stage, and maybe you and I together can kind of talk this through. So to your point of kind of getting ready and being, what did you call it? Active
waiting.
Active waiting, right? So you and other executives in the industry, and frankly, we'll show an illustration that this story arc of people being in control of their data has been kind of evolving for well over 130 years. You've got social and cultural forces. You have legal and law and regulatory forces. You noted, for example, the GDPR, which is the Europeans' framework for giving people rights over their identity and personal data. Just so that those that are listening to this possibly for the first time, Gartner predicts that by 2025, 75% of the world's population will be covered under one or more of these regulatory frameworks that gives people control over their data. So our point today is not to talk about all of these forces, and we could delve in and have a conversation about each one of these bullets and more, for hours. But to kind of lean forward to that, I wanted to kind of take a step back and level set our conversation here. And the best way that I've been able to kind of illustrate for this as the industry is this. So down on the Amazon River, you've got this natural phenomenon where the Amazon River meets up with the Rio Negro. And when these two rivers meet, they don't actually merge because they have different speeds, temperatures, and densities. And it takes nearly 6 kilometers for these two rivers to come back together and actually be one river again. And to kind of illustrate that, I kind of look at it in this way. We've got all of these traditional organizational centric approaches to personal data that we've been seeing for years, and most recently, what people like Zuboff would call as surveillance capitalism, or Google or Facebook or Apple, or all of these different players that have been leveraging and using our data to give us really enriching personalized experiences, to create relevant experiences, but that's also led to unexpected harms, hacking and challenges and friction in the market. So you've got all these traditional organizational approaches, let's call that one river. And then you have this people-centric approach that's been evolving, these tools and sets of utilities like Prifina that are going to enable me to have agency and control of my data. And like in the Amazon, or in the Amazon River, unlike in terms of miles, it's going to take us years for these two different approaches to kind of merge together. But I want to kind of move us to, what does this actual merging look like? So if you think about it in terms of just data in general and the vision of data in the United States, that started around 1890 with the introduction of a new law called the right to privacy. And then around 1946, you had a gentleman by the then in our Bush who had this idea that there was this mimic machine, this ability that people should be able to have direct and indirect control of their data. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to the 1990s to 2010s, the internet is emerging, and even around that time, you had players that were envisioning this model where people could be in control of their personal data. And in fact, there's players like Kenneth Loudon that suggested, there's a need for an information exchange marketplace to which and where people could be controlling and publishing their data. Then as we move into Internet 2.0, you start getting into this world of platform and API regulation, and this broad explosion of our data flowing to the tune of what Cisco referred to as creating a $19 trillion net economic value for society worldwide when we unleash the potential of our data, and particularly our personal data within society. And then that gets us to today, this emergence, this confluence where solutions like Prifina have now met with the traditional approaches to personal data and identity. And that really started emerging right around that 2018, 2020 timeframe from a practical perspective. And so our real point going forward for the rest of the conversation today is to drill into this and to realize that this is no longer an academic theoretical view from 130 years ago. And in fact, if you look at the timeframes of change, it went from 100 years to 20 years to 10 years to now 2022 to X, maybe 3, 5, 6 years. We're going to see some fundamental technological, social, economic, and regulatory legal changes that are going to be making a significant and substantial change in the marketplace. So we illustrate this to kind of demonstrate the fundamental shifts that are happening in the marketplace today. And so now I kind of want to convert our conversation to Prifina, and can you kind of tell us, like, what in fact are you doing when it comes to this idea of helping people have control and agency over their data, and to what extent does that happen within this kind of merging of traditional organizational and this new emerging people-centric approach to data? Can you kind of reflect what I was just talking about over the last few minutes, and then introduce us into the idea of Prifina?
Yes, very much. So as mentioned, the key is really to start everything from the individual first, and then basically build everything from that perspective. So a lot of the ways of how others are thinking, and how also, to be fair, we started from our journey as well initially, is starting from how do we change the existing services, and how do we do something from service side, remove something or whatnot. And there's even a Medium post about me saying, like, let's create a user account as a service, like let's separate those user accounts and start building from there. But because of really when you want to build everything from the ground up, and when you have that opportunity to build everything from ground up, and you look at all the technology, all the mature technology and the latest technologies available, in the world, we discovered such cool stuff out there that what we could use to build everything from bottom up, really to serve the individual first. So putting individual in the center, as here we see in the picture, and then creating a platform where they can bring all data from all aspects of their life into one private place that is not a commonly shared database, or not just for one use case, but it doesn't matter what data from what aspect of life, they can bring it into one place, and then that's the starting point. Then the next point from there is, how can you make that data useful and valuable for the individual? And then kind of that has been our core starting point for everything.
And just to put this alongside the traditional organizational centric approach, in past, a Google or an Amazon and Facebook would be here, and all of this data would be flowing to them, and then they in turn would provide us advertising and services and promotions. And what you're saying is that we could be putting this individual in the center. And if I pop over here to your data model, you're essentially, what's happening is I, as an individual, can gain access to what you're referring to as a personal data store. I then can, have my personal data store integrate with all of the various applications and services. And we actually have an illustration of that. If I pop over the other slides here, bringing this back, you're essentially saying this kind of personal data cloud or personal data store is a database of me, one of which that I can own and control my data. Then you could have all of these different microservices that could be feeding data into my data store, and then services that then could be consuming that data for me to be able to enrich my life. If we think of Prifina is offering this personal data cloud, this collect your own data store, enabling me to integrate all of these different data sources for me to be able to pull my data in, and then allowing me to be able to use this data on my behalf to enrich my life. That's basically what we're talking about, yes?
Yes, exactly. And one key thing is also couple of key things to take into account is that we are a platform. So we make these tools available for individuals, but then to do this exactly. And one of the key, roles for me has been that how do we make all of this how do we take the user experience into picture? Like, how can we it's been one of the most difficult things for us to resolve. How to create the user experience, how to create the user interfaces, how to communicate this new world in the form of a platform or an application. But then when saying that we are a platform, we then create developer tools and resources so that other developers can also build applications that individuals can install and run on top of their data. And all of this they can do in fully private setting. So while we talk about the data store, it's not only just a store or a database. Each individual also actually have their own private cloud computing around their data, which means that they can run software privately in their cloud. So including also all the new data that they generate, so how they use the applications or what they do with those stays by default private. So it's not shared to some service outside or whatnot. And still they can also use new applications on the data that they just generated. So it's a whole new paradigm compared to sharing data across multiple services online. So we can take the data for the individual can keep the data, they can keep it private, but to gain value and use that data, they don't need to share it outside. Of course they can if they want to, but they don't need to by default, which is basically the default assumption of all the other solutions out there today, including the Solid as an example.
So for example, then, again, let's be really clear about this. So in the traditional model, I go to a website, I go to a service, I sign up for that service, and I'm essentially handing my data over them for them to be storing and serving and stewarding my data on my behalf. So there's just a tremendous amount of trust that needs to happen there. In this new model, what we're saying is there's tons of terms. For those on the side of this, you can reach out to me directly if you're listening to this. I've been mapping about 70 terms that are related concepts. So if some of the stuff is not new, doesn't make a lot of sense to you, that's okay, because there's a lot of conflicting terminology that's happening in the market. So for example, you're calling it a personal data cloud, other groups call it a pod or a data account or a personal data store. We as an industry are still resolving around what this database of me, if you will, is this virtual, or what do you call the serverless private cloud that I could have to store and manage my own data. And that data sits in there and I'm in control of it. I don't need to effectively use it. I don't need to share it with anyone else. I get to collect that data, manage that data on and for my behalf. And then if I want to share it, I can. If I don't want to share it, I don't have to. That's basically what you're saying. Okay. And
yes, so exactly.
I can have my private cloud, and that private cloud could be, both, I can manually be putting data into my cloud, but I can also be passively and actively having that data collected into my cloud through my mobile apps and the various sensors and IoT devices that are in my lives, or other services that I use. If we go back to your website, for example, like Fitbits and like Pinterest and Calm and my Amazon purchases, all of that could be dynamically be feeding into my cloud. But likewise, I could be connecting this service through companies that are offering things like an Apple Watch or a smart thermostat in my house. The sensors within those IoT devices could then also integrate with your application development marketplace to be feeding into this too. All of that is appropriate statements?
Yes, exactly. And it's very important when offering this for consumers, they need to be able to continue having their freedom to do, use existing applications, demand for private applications, choose, existing version, or ask a private version of the application in the future. When they take the data from their sensor in a product. So, and we're building some cool new ways of where you can put the sensors and what type of data you can collect. You need to be able to take that data from the sensor all the way through to your personal cloud in a fully private infrastructure, so that it doesn't touch anyone else in between, so that it's not passing through something. So here in this illustration, we are showing like how a data from a sensor, for example, or just directly from the mobile itself, can end up into your private cloud without going into any of our hubs or routers in between. It just goes from the sensor to your mobile, and then it communicates directly with your cloud, not with our cloud, but with your cloud. So the whole thing end to end is private.
Emphasize that point. So even Prifina doesn't have access to the data.
No.
Right? It's me. It's my software.
As it should be. Yes.
My question is, why would a company agree to give me my data? So their economic asset. Why are they going to agree to give the individual their data? I have some thoughts on that.
So there's a couple of perspectives to that. So one is, of course, the regulation, and that is one of the key drivers for why we decided to commit to this vision now, or 4 years ago or 3 years ago, instead of not, was that we saw the regulator putting like a foot in the ground, and we saw that other regulators are following that through. So that's a very, very strong. They have the power to change the market when they want to. So that started to happen. So that was one perspective. Another one, that the consumer sentiment also was, so there was a movement getting stronger and stronger around that. And then the third piece, from the company's perspective, realistically, majority of the companies don't know what to do with the data. They are not like Googles and Facebooks and Amazons. The key fact is that there's only very small percentage of number of companies, but those companies are really big, of course, that actually know what to do with data, that are sufficient with good analytics and, advanced things with data. I would say maybe 95% of companies in the world have no capabilities of doing anything that smart with the data, specifically with their customers' data. So when you combine these things, the data is actually becomes a liability. So the regulator pressing on the other side, telling that you should do this and this with customer data, and on the other side, they don't really gain much of that data, to be fair, in any advanced methods. So that's kind of that aspect. So now if you are a new company, you can start and build your applications with zero liability by building them in top of the private architecture. And you don't need to run any servers. You don't need to have any basically liability of your customers' data.
Wow. So, I mean, so to your point, this is a massive paradigm shift in that, one, I'm going to give my data because I have to. It's now regulatorily required, especially, throughout all of Europe and in 5 states in the United States, if somebody raises their hand and says, give me my data, called data portability regulations, you as a company have to do that. The other thing you're saying is, because of consumer sentiment and opinion, people are tired. People do want to protect their privacy. They do want control. And then to your other point is, there's a lot of technical liability and tech debt and commercial liability that comes with most people's data. So by moving to a model like this, you comply with regulations, you increase consumer trust, and you reduce your corporate liabilities. That's pretty impressive.
And cost. Yeah. Also, you reduce your cost. It's like basically it's pretty similar than it used to be for credit card number data. Like no companies hold credit card numbers anymore. It's Stripe and other few companies that hold that. But when you build, credit card payments, nobody has credit card data. So it's no different to that, and it's a default. So we see that it's going to be same default for personal data, because why would you take the liability and the cost associated with it if you don't have to? If you're not making any, outcomes from it. And what you get in return, now you can build these private applications, and you can even use way richer data and way smarter technologies on the customer side that with the help of our platform and the software that we can help run, than you can on your side. So why would you do that?
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And so, Prifina, and you realize that you're not necessarily domain experts in every field, say finance, health, etc. There are other people that have domain expertise that will come and build capabilities and solutions on your platform. But in prep for this call, you had presented to me this idea of a kind of killer app, if you will, in the context of personal data identity management, that also ties in with the zeitgeist of the introduction of artificial intelligence. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yes. So first and foremost, of why the platform business model has been always the go-to model for our thinking before even this one, is that because it enables just a more scalable model to solve a problem. And really, like, if you think all aspects of life, of the whole global population. You know, that's that's something that you cannot apply something that, hey, let's introduce this product first and then that product first. So the only option is realistically to focus on just doing a platform, taking care of all the heavy lifting that is equal to all of the actors involved that can then build on top of that. And that's what we've been doing in our active waiting for the past 4 years. So
perfect.
That then.
So with that, but you're going to now give us a concrete use case for an individual, assuming they have a data store, yes?
Yes, exactly. So then the personal AI, which is the Arrowhead product and really the killer app on to use your personal data, has been in our, you know, vision in the very beginning when we started, even before we incorporated it. But realistically, while that there has been a lot of technologies already making these things possible that we are also exploring and enjoying now, the market has not really been ready. So it's a combination of multiple technologies coming together in rates that can be creating a consumer price level products and services and applications. But now, then of course, with the you know, the ChatGPT moment of the world, historical, you know, movement of you know, making the whole world aware of how you can interact with an AI in a user-friendly way, has now changed the market forever, and we all know that. So of course now is then also the right time to introduce something like a personal AI as an application. And how we see the personal AI is not an application really; it's more of an intelligent interface that sits on top of your data, and also applications for that matter. So basically, what you can do with that is that it's an interface that you can have a natural conversation. So you don't need to learn an interface to interact with it. And, you know, we all know how much something like Siri sucks, or these kind of promises of the past. Those have mainly been because they don't have the data, or they don't have the access, or they don't have the intelligence. So they just suck because they don't have the right architecture underneath to cater for that, and they don't have personal data that is necessary to cater for that. So when you have the architecture built from the ground up, then that enables to have an intelligent interface on top of your data. And why is it intelligence also? When you take it to the level of just natural language, it also happens that there are all the tools to make it in any language of the world. So you can speak in Finnish, you can speak in English, you can speak in Spanish, and it can reply also in English, Spanish, or whatnot. And it can sit on top of your data. So you can ask about your data, and it can answer, it can retrieve that data that you have in your cloud. So it's factual information about you that you have there. And then it translates the meaning of that data to you in an understandable way. So it's super powerful interface that you can do. And it's not, again, only us that can use this. Any developer can come to our platform and build intelligent bots for users. And how I want to make the difference between what we built the technology, the general purpose use, and the basics of that. But let's say there's a special personal trainer, personal shopper, a personal lawyer. We're not going to become expertise of that. We don't also want any AI to be an expert of that. So there needs to be human curated answers that are then more advanced than what we would give as a basic reply. So that's also how it connects to the platform approach. But the key here is actually having your data. And without that, they are not personalized at all.
So we're now going to go into a dummy set of data. So let's say I go in here and type my name as Michael. And if I got to learn how to spell my own name right. And I'm the CEO, and I'm going to give it an email address. By the way, I'm a big proponent of using tools like Pocket Geek Privacy that actually interacting with other services. You create an aliased email that proxies to your email address, so you can protect yourself. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and so now I'm entering into the chat-like experience AI that's now sitting on top of my quote unquote dummy personal data store. What should I live a happy and healthy life, right? So generally my And so now, essentially artificial intelligence engine is now reaching into my data, going through the application layer, making an SQL query to my database, and it's now coming back with an answer. And I think it's because of my internet connection. So let's go ahead and ask that question again.
Based on data available in your private data cloud, as well as public data sources, it appears that the best way to live a happy and healthy life is to be kind to yourself and others. Making small, positive changes in your life, getting enough exercising regularly can help to boost your mental and physical health, while being kind and showing compassion to those around you can help to strengthen your relationships and foster a more positive environment. Additionally, it is important to take time each day to focus on yourself and what is important to you in order to stay true to yourself and live a balanced life.
Okay, so I like that question, and that's good. I'm going to say, well, are my current eating habits aligned and good? And by the way, I'm copying and pasting these questions in, so you don't have to see me, mistyping and creating typos, like the fact that I couldn't even spell my name a second ago.
Based on the data available in your private data cloud, it seems that your current eating habits are mostly in line with the goal of living a happy and healthy life. According to your food diary, you've been eating a balanced diet consisting of mostly whole, unprocessed foods, and you have been limiting your intake of unhealthy, processed foods. Additionally, you have been drinking plenty of water, which is essential for maintaining a healthy body. However, I do suggest that you include a more diverse range of fruits and vegetables in your diet to ensure that you are getting enough vitamins and minerals.
Okay, and let's pause there then. For example, so I have a Hydrate connected water bottle that's got a sensor. So Hydrate could integrate to your platform, and so every time I drink, the water consumption is going to be fed into my personal data store. Every time I keep a food diary, that's getting fed into the personal data store. And so then that's where the data is coming in, and how this AI, and again, that is shared with any third-party service. It's on my data, so all of this is safe and secure. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly correct. And this gives you the sense of why you want to definitely keep it that way. Because the more you see that the more you have, the more value you will gain, but the more you would add to any service, that is not in your control, the more uneasy you would feel.
Right, and again, let's say this is dummy data, so you're being positive about this. But if I wasn't eating well, or if I didn't have high cholesterol, or if I had high cholesterol, or if I had some health issues, we're all human, so it's not like we all have our issues. But I don't necessarily need nor want to necessarily make it public in the very moment that I'm having health concerns, because there might be some reasons for that. So this allows us to interrogate my data and get help with it being private. So if I were then to ask, okay, great, maybe I do need to be eating better. So I'm going to
based on your dietary data available in your private data cloud, I suggest that you add dark leafy greens such as kale and spinach, nutrient-dense legumes such as chickpeas and beans, and low sodium, low sugar options such as nuts and seeds to your diet. Additionally, increasing your fruit intake with a mix of fresh, frozen, and dried fruits would be beneficial as well. All of these foods are rich in vitamins and minerals, and can help to improve your overall health.
Okay, so it's telling me to eat kale. Well, I don't know what kale is, or what a good recipe would be.
2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 2 cloves of garlic, minced, of chickpea, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, salt and pepper to taste. Instructions: 1. In a large bowl, combine the kale, chickpeas, olive oil, balsamic vinegar, garlic, and lemon juice. 2. Mix everything is well combined. 3. Add salt and pepper to taste. 4. Enjoy.
Okay, and so in this example, let's say I am a exercise company, or company that's built on your platform. As part of this I could assume then this could be like, add this recipe to my recipe book, and there's a whole bunch of valuable interactions that people could be building on top of the experience that you're providing here.
Yes, and one of the key things is, for example, like I have personally kept a food diary for 1 full year, just as one of my own personal things. So then I know how clumsy it is to enter that data, But here you can easily, like, you could have functionality to just feed the data. Like today I had the same breakfast as yesterday. It's done. There's nothing more. So it's not only, using the data, but it's also adding data. Or like, when you ask, how did I sleep last night? And then it tells me the data. Then it could also ask, well, how did it feel to you? So I said, well, actually, regardless of the data, I felt I had really good sleep. And then it could ask, did you see any dreams? So it can also capture data the other way around. So it's a whole new game overall, how you can interact.
And because this is a dummy database, we can't be entering data into the data through this demo. This is just a query, but I could be having that back and forth directional experience.
Yes.
So similarly, you said I could turn on the, how is my car doing?
Based on the data available in your personal data cloud, it seems that your car is doing well overall. The OBD2 sensor data indicates that the engine is functioning normally. There are no active trouble codes. However, based on your maintenance history, your car is due for an oil change in the next few weeks. Additionally, the tire pressure in your front left tire is slightly lower than the recommended level. It might be a good idea to add some air to that tire to ensure optimal performance and safety.
So my car company, for example, could be building an app on this, and then at this point I could say, hey, schedule me an appointment.
Exactly.
And then you could have interaction with that way as well. So this is terribly exciting. How does someone get, we're looking at this, how does someone get started with you? I mean, I've got so many questions. Let's say I'm a consumer and I want to start playing with this. Let's say I'm a developer and I want to start developing with this. Where do we get started?
So it's very important here that it's, again, we are a platform. We want to take care of, and focus on the most complex and heaviest part of this to enable these possibilities. And then we want, people to come with, that's cool. I want to have this and that. And then on the other side, we have the developers. I want to build this and that on top of that. So it's really getting a movement going around this, not in a theoretical level, but in a very practical, hands-on level, where there are those who know what they want from the future, and then there are those who can build the future for them using these architectures and platforms that we make available. So the best way to do that is to join the community. It's right there, join the community on the top. That basically takes into our Slack community, where all of the, anyone can join, anyone can even ask applications. And then there are those who are building applications, showcasing what they are doing, and so forth. So that's really the area. And then through the community and also the demo, we contact individuals also to do, interviews, ask more details, ask if they want to engage more with us. And then, of course, you can always reach out to us directly. Easiest is inside the Slack. You can just ping me. You can ping our CEO. You can ping any one of us there and tell what you have in your mind. Regardless if you want to build a sensorized consumer product for tennis rackets, the new cool sneakers that have, collects data of your walking, or, whatever you want to do, is just, that's the way to go. It really needs the whole, movement behind this. The community is called Liberty, Equality, Data. That should tell pretty much all there is to it. Most of the things, if everything that we have is pretty much open source out there in GitHubs and so forth. So it's really just, come and join the game, and let's build cool stuff together.
And let's talk about the business model, if you don't mind, just in the last few minutes. I mean, I get it's early and we don't know everything yet. But what is the business model for, say, an app developer, for an enterprise that wants to build on top of your infrastructure, and for the individual themselves?
So basically, when it's for those who want to build the applications, if you want to build free apps, then it's free. It's pretty much similar as any app marketplace business model from our side. So for now, everything is free, and then at some point we'll introduce like a platform fee for running that applications and keeping the tools operational. That's from the developer side. From the individual consumer side, it's basically as simple as pay for storage, because we are storing your data. So, and it's your data, so you should pay for the storage. If we pay it, it's something odd in it, there's something not correct. So it's basically as simple as pay for the storage that you have. Then you can run any number of applications on top of that. You can install them from the app market that we have. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the business model itself. Okay, try to keep it as simple and understandable for everyone. So that's it.
Yeah, and just so we go back to this vision of kind of where we sit within the future, we can continue to go down this, the traditional models, and we're kind of like right here. And so to your point, we as a community, we as society, we as developers, ecosystems, consumers, we need to realize and recognize that these two now approaches to managing personal data and identity in society have finally reached this confluence. And now it's up to us to decide how fast we want to go down and merge these two approaches, and where we want to take the capability. But the reality is the capability is here and now, and it exists.
Exactly.
So this is terribly exciting. Now, if people want to reach out to you, where do they go? Can they get to you on LinkedIn? Can they, connect with the company through the community? What other approaches? And, let me kind of leave you with this last question. I mean, how would you summarize where we are now and where we need to go in society with personal data and identity?
Yeah, so basically, at this point, regardless of what companies say and what matters is what they do. So everyone says they put the customer in the center and they are all about customer. And then, of course, there are companies that don't even anymore say that, and others say it for them, how they consider customers being, products on their side. So basically, it's very much that we see that the service center approach is treating the customers as objects in there. And anyone who works in UX, user experience design, is very aware of that it's very hard to convert the company mindset to think about the customer. It's just difficult. But in general, we want to really, revert back to that point that you bring your data and you keep your data to yourself, and then the organizations are there to serve you, and you as a user or customer, you're the king of that. So it's all about starts from the individual. So stop treating customers as objects and start treating them who they are. The kings of those bring the revenue. And of course, it's understandable if they are users, if they're not paying customers, then they are not customers, of course. But that's a whole different point. You can still treat them fairly.
Yeah, and again, we've got days, hours, weeks, months to get this evolved. Now, we talked about this 130-year arc to get this to this moment, and you saw it, we've seen it, I've seen it. That pivotal point around 2019, 2020, where the shift started to happen. Is it going to be 10, 20 years for us to shift, or do you think it's going to be faster?
Well, it's up to every individual. Why we think this is exciting and will happen faster than many things. A lot of VCs for past decade have been obsessed with B2B software. They have not been excited about the consumer products for quite some time. Realistically, when we took at the big money, they had the hopes of the blockchain world of opening that, but that technology is not mature. Everything that we have built is built on mature technology. And it's scalable, it's ready to go. So it comes down to the individual's choices that they make, one individual at a time. And that's where we see the power of the pace being possible, because it's not a long decision-making process for individual after they become aware of the opportunity or the choice that they have to make that decision and tell their friends to make that decision as well. So it can move way faster than the typical, things that are on the B2B side. So we think this will now, when we have gone over that tipping point, and also because of the personal AI as being the really optimal intelligent interface to interact with your data, those things combined, we feel this is going to be a pretty fast ride from here forward. But as any serial entrepreneur would say, I'm not going to put a year number on that because it's just hard.
Yeah, but maybe I can though, because in the sense that if you think back 2005, 2007, social media starts emerging. And if you look at the market forces that were happening out there, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have really broadband internet in the households. Yeah. There was no idea of what, accepted online commerce. The regulations weren't there. Consumers weren't freaking out about data breaches and privacy and concerns. hit 2010, that starts to change. And by 10 years later, by 2017, 2018, all of those market impediments were gone. And you now had well over, say, 2/3 of the global population engaging actively through various social media platforms. So if you think about what took social media 10 to 12 years to do to get 2/3 of the global population using it, you think about all of those impediments are gone. And in fact, everything, the tailwinds behind it now are accelerating in even greater pace. 5G is coming. You've got a new billion people in third world markets that are being added to the internet. You have rapid, 96% of the world's population that is connected to the internet has a phone. So all the impediments are gone and all of the accelerators are accelerating. So what took social media 12 years will take this effort or this vision 6, 5, 3, so significantly faster is, I think, what we can assume.
Yes,
safely.
Definitely. Yeah, one of the most, there's so many cool things around, the AI now being so hot topic, but one of the coolest thing for me is this, the localization effort doesn't exist. So while the demo doesn't yet work with any languages spoken, we already have an internal version that does. So for us, going through different countries, different languages is no difference to English. So it's super cool. You can talk to it with your native language. You don't even need to know how to type, and you can get answers from your data that you get from your watch or your Aura or whatever that may be. That's just super cool. And then I'm just so excited about all the developers and the cool stuff that they are building. So we're just happy to be here with the architecture that we built while actively waiting.
So on that note, let's wrap it up. I mean, we could be talking for days and hours and weeks. I just love this, and I'll definitely want to have you back on the show. But for all those that are listening to this that have enjoyed this, what we've been talking about, it's here, it's real. Please go to Prifina's website, check out the beta in the comments of the beta link in the comments of this video. Subscribe to the channel, and please keep an eye out. And I highly encourage you, if you're in the development world, hop right in and start developing with these tools and services, because this market's here, this market is real, and we're ready to go. So Valto, thank you very much. I'm very grateful for you having joined us.
Thanks, Mikael. And for those who try to find me, you can find, because I have unusual name, it's quite unique. So you can find me LinkedIn very easily. Just search for my name and you can find it there. So thanks, Michael, for having me. This has been awesome.
Thank you very much.